Hello, and welcome to this latest episode of Leaders Upgraded podcast. Way back in 2010, I boarded a long haul flight and I picked up a book called Wonder Women. I was intrigued by the title and I started reading the book. And the rest of the flight, I couldn't put the book down and tears were streaming down my eyes. I thought people would definitely think someone has passed away in my family. That's how copiously I was crying. The book was written by a lady known as Marcia Reynolds,
Mhm.
and her writing style and her insights about high achieving women resonated with me so much. I just had to go and find her and
Mhm.
get in touch with her and follow her work. Fast forward more than 15 years later, I have been an ardent fan of Marcia Reynolds. She was the fifth president of the International Coaches Federation. That should tell you just how deep her expertise are. She has had multiple books that have gone to do very well across the globe, the latest one of which being Breakthrough Coaching. And she is on the podcast today to talk about leaders as coaches. So please join me in welcoming Marcia Reynolds. Hey, Marcia.
Hi, thank you, and it's always good to see you.
It's always good to see you. You
Mhm.
know how with some people you can meet them after months and still feel a connection? I think our connection is like that for me.
Mhm. Definitely, and we have met in different parts of the world, so that's been fun too.
I know that's the part of having a network of fabulous friends like you, because you don't know where the lines will intersect, right? So always got to keep tabs. Maybe it's at the same airport sometimes. All right. So let's talk about leader as a coach.
Mhm.
And a common refrain that I hear when I talk to organizations about coaching is, oh, where's the time? We are so busy as is. Now we're
Mhm.
supposed to find time for coaching.
Mhm.
And leaders are navigating through so much change and overwhelm.
Mhm.
So I would love to hear what your advice is to them. What is it that
Yeah.
they can possibly do to navigate what I
Mhm.
personally feel might even be a mental block
Yeah,
around coaching and overwhelm? But I would love to hear your thoughts on this.
yeah. I've actually moved away from calling it leaders coach, and frankly, the International Coaching Federation has as well. That because I think that's the scary thing is that they think we're trying to make them into coaches,
Hmm.
and they're not a coach, and so there's this automatic resistance. That if we just say we're that when I teach this to you, I'm just giving you a coaching approach. I'm going to give you some skills that are going to help engage people much more quickly and have them actually listen and maybe commit to taking actions much more quickly than you turning around and telling what to do, and that's that. So if they understand, it's just some skills they can then use and integrate into their current conversations and who they think they are. And I'm not trying to make them be someone else. It's easier to accept.
I agree 100%. I
Mhm.
normally tend to tell them, I said, look, here's the thing. You will end up coaching either for high performance or for low performance. So which one would you prefer to coach for?
Yeah.
But you're right, it's a mental model shift. It's not another
Right.
identity that you take on, but it's sort
Right.
of what you do as a leader. So you
Mhm.
might as well start getting better at it. Where do you think they should begin? What might be something they could do maybe on a daily basis
Mhm.
to make emotionally intelligent decisions and
Mhm.
conversations, even under high stress situations?
Yeah. Decision making on their own and conversations are two different things. On the conversation side, it like many of us, I'm sure, talking about being present and listening. But what I've come to share is that before you go into any conversation, understand your intention. Why am I having this conversation? And if you're going in to change someone, to make them do something different, and also your sense of are you angry with them? Are you irritated? That you're going in there with an energy that will either, in that case, probably repel more than engage. So if you can shift your intention to, I am really there for them. I am there to help them succeed. There's things getting in their way that I want to help that we discover together. So the shifting of intention is the first place to start because that's the energy you're going to bring in, and that's what their brain's going to pick up, whether this is a safe conversation or not. And I don't care how much you smile at them, right? They're going to know what is your intention, what are you feeling, because the brain is really good at determining that the moment they're in your presence.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Now, there's a lot of research coming out on, I think it's called or something, where they talk about how people pick up your energy frequency within 10 feet when you are in the proximity. You don't have to say anything, don't have to do anything. And so I suppose one has to get the internal intent right before one gets the external action and energy right, is what I'm
Absolutely.
saying.
The intention and the emotion. I say it's intention and emotion and respect. Those are the three things that you really have to set in your brain. I'm there in service of, and I want them to know that I'm there to support their development and growth. I have to shift whatever I'm feeling to being hopeful, um, encouraging, whatever it is that would be a more positive emotion. And then remember that this person, this human in front of you is doing the best they can with what they have. Very few people are I'm out to sabotage everything. They just, what they have at the moment, they may not have not just the technical skills, but the people skills to be able to even understand themselves and to do their best. And they've often not had a safe place to talk about that. By going in with those things, your intention, your emotion, and your respect, you already are creating that sense of psychological safety that's necessary for them, for their brain to start creating the chemicals that help them feel safe, that help them bond to you, and will start to stimulate the creative mind while you're having this conversation. So that pre-work goes a long way to the effectiveness of any interaction.
Yes. I love that word respect. I think it was Martin Seligman who came up with that unconditional positive regard, because sometimes in coaching situations, particularly difficult conversations, you can look at someone and say, I don't like this person. How do I get myself to coach them? Because
Yeah,
I know they're difficult, or whatever label you've put on them. And this idea of
yeah.
respect and unconditional positive regard, that just
Mhm,
remember, this is a work situation with a
mhm.
particular scenario. It's such a small part of who this person you're talking to. There's so much more to them, and
Yeah.
they deserve your respect. So I love the fact that you've added respect in there
Mhm.
as we try to navigate some of these.
And what you're saying, that the positive regard, that doesn't mean that you aren't disappointed. And I can be disappointed but still believe in you. And if it's going to be difficult for you to shift to believing in the person, then I would say come in saying, I know that you said you were going to do this and it didn't happen. And I'm a little disappointed because I really believe that you can accomplish more. So let them know, because you can't hide that. And if you can't shift out of it, better that you share that you're feeling that. But to say it's because you said you were going to do it a number of times and you didn't. And I would like to explore with you like what's truly getting in the way, because I believe you can. So
Yeah.
I'm disappointed, but I still believe, I still respect you and believe that you can do this.
Yeah,
Mhm,
I love that. And
mhm,
it's like shifting from acknowledging the feeling and
mhm,
shifting the focus to the belief, which
mhm.
should be there, because that helps move the conversation forward. But if you
Yeah.
have given up on your belief itself, I think that's
Yeah,
not
yeah, yeah. Then yeah, why are you even in this conversation?
all right. So in your book, you have
Mhm.
this fabulous analogy which says coaches are experts in debugging the operating system of outdated beliefs, which I just absolutely love, because everybody understands this concept of the operating system. So
Mhm.
I'm just curious, because you coach so many leaders across the world, what are some of the most common obsolete files or mental models you see
Obsolete
leaders
files,
today?
yeah.
And how do we
Mhm.
even identify them and then replace them? And it's a whole process, right? First
Yeah.
recognizing than replacing it. So what are
Yeah.
some of the common ones you seem to be coming up again and again? And just out of curiosity, has it been the same pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, or has anything changed there?
I think that the pandemic helped people recognize that we always taught you have to embrace ambiguity, but nobody really knew what that meant until the pandemic hit. So the idea that I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow slammed us, and boom, I have to accept that the world is uncertain, and we don't like that. Our brain doesn't like uncertainty, but I'm better accepting it because I don't know what's going to happen. It taught us that. So I think that's a good thing, that in the sense of I'm more prepared to deal with surprises. But in terms of beliefs in the operating system, is to remember that everything I see right now in this very moment, that I'm interpreting based on my past. I don't see the present like brand new and I have to figure it out. My brain wants to instantly make meaning of everything I see. And that meaning can only be based on the past. Even my assumptions about the future are based on my past experiences. But the thing is that this is why people need coaches, because for me to actually stop and analyze my own operating system, my brain won't allow me to do that. Because what I said, that brain really likes certainty. Now, we may accept that the world is not as certain as we thought it was, and certainly the weather's not. But yeah, I live in Arizona. The brain doesn't allow us to truly stop and analyze our own thinking. The neuroscientists say we need a thought disruptor externally to help us stop and see our own thinking patterns, to bring the thoughts out here. And that's what I do. So when I say I'm listening to someone's operating system, I somebody said something, you're just so intuitive. I'm like, not necessarily. I'm trained to truly hear what's creating their beliefs. What are they saying that indicates why they're feeling this way and how they see this? And I just reflect it. I don't have to know the answer. I just said, so let me get it straight. And I clearly and concisely summarize that and then ask a question. Coaching isn't about asking questions. It's about reflecting so I can actually look at my thoughts out here. And then I'll ask the question. So what is it that truly disappoints you? Or so what is it that has occurred up to this point that has you believing that? So it doesn't have to be this like profound question. It's profound because of the reflection. All I'm trying to do is help people to stop for a moment, like Daniel Kahneman had said in Thinking Fast and Slow, to slow down, pull out the thoughts, which they can't do well on their own, and look at them. And it's amazing when they see their thinking out here, how they can then see the gaps in the logic, the bugs in the system, the beliefs that are old and not serving them, the assumptions they're totally making up, and all the shoulds that are stopping them from going after their dreams.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it's interesting because the process of reflecting it back to them. I love it that sometimes I will use my own words and they will stop and say, now that you put it like that, because they don't realize how it ends up sounding to somebody else who's not so deep into that process. And also it doesn't have a vested interest in them being right or wrong.
Yeah.
It's trying to explore where you want to go. So I wanted to explore three things that I find come in the way when leaders bring out the coaching skill set when they try and coach. And I would love for us to just see, how these three could be navigated, because I think you have entire books on some of these things that I see come up. So there's no way we'll cover it all, but for people who are listening, it's a great way for them to stop and say, you know what, you're right. This is what kind of comes in the way for me to use my coaching skill set, mindset with my team or my people. And the first one there, this is so common, is this need for control. You have an entire generation of leaders who's been trained on problem solving, get
Mhm.
in, find the problem, solve
Mhm.
it. It's almost
Yeah.
an equivalent hit on being able to
Mhm.
find it. But coaching is different. You've written a book about this. It's not about fixing the problem, but coaching the person.
Mm.
How do they do that without feeling like they're losing control of the situation? Because this is not a space that they're very
Yeah.
used to in.
More and more I write about in my books about when I say coaching the person, a lot of times is how they define themselves. Their need for control, as well as their identity of I'm the boss, I'm the one who has the answers. It's all within that definition of self that generally, if I get a client, if I'm working with a leader and they're suggested they have a coach because they're struggling engaging with people, they may not have good scores on their 360s. I don't ask them what are they doing. I always say, so define leadership for me. And then we look at, so what do you think people that work for you, how would they define the leader they most want to work for? And it clearly comes out, this is what they want. They may say it sarcastically, but they want someone to listen, to engage them, to develop them. That's come up more and more. They're not necessarily looking for just the quick answer and to go away. But even if the leader says, we're all so busy, they don't really want me to spend time talking to them, they just want the answer and then they go off and do it. I said, oh, I see. So you're creating an environment to where everyone knows that once they have a problem, they can go to you and get the answer, that they don't have to figure it out on their own because you're always going to give it to them and you will always have the time to give that to them. And they're like, oh. And then honestly, if we really get into it, I say they call that learned helplessness. And so what is the environment, the culture you want to create? One where people always have to come to you, or people are starting to learn things and grow and try things out on their own, and they have their own autonomy and mastery instead of being totally dependent on you being the answer. What kind of leader is that? Who would you be in that picture? So it really is a shifting of who I am as a leader. And you notice I didn't say coach. I didn't say they have to be a coach,
Yeah.
that it's the shift in who I am as a leader that really engages and inspires those people that work for me.
Mm. Yeah, I find this shift particularly when people who go from working in by themselves to then leading a team
Mm-hmm.
early on in their career, they define their identity a lot around
Yeah.
being able to solve problems.
The high
Uh,
achiever. Yeah. They
yeah,
were
so
well rewarded for that. It's hard to let that go.
and so the ability to bite your tongue and hold back just a little bit, but it has a
Mm-hmm.
payoff in the long run because a team starts
Yeah.
developing. But it's again, it comes back to your identity as a leader. So I like that question of who do you
Yeah.
think your team needs you to be? And of course, there's always, I suppose, there are places where one needs to troubleshoot, and then there are places where you need to hang back
Mm-hmm.
a little bit. Is there some sort of, and this is me oversimplifying, of course, any framework or thought process on when one should decide to hold back and when one should be like, okay, you know what, let's just
Yeah.
go do this? Is there a
You
way
know
to
what?
think about this?
It doesn't take very long to turn to the person when they have a problem and just say, I'd love to hear what you've been thinking about. Because most of the time, people who've been doing their job for some time, they've got ideas. And it's not that they don't know, they're afraid to do what they do know. And it's generally more a lack of confidence than it is a lack of skill or knowledge. If
Yeah.
it is truly a lack of skill or knowledge, and you know that, that would be absolutely that there's nothing that they can draw on. But most of the time, if they've been doing it for a little while, I would always say that first. So what have you been thinking of? Do you have some ideas that you've been rolling around? I'd love to hear that first. It creates an entirely different conversation because then they're going to share that and then you can explore it. And then if there's a gap in the knowledge or skill, then you can like, okay, that's great. You've got some good ideas. I've had some experience in this, so I'd like to just to add it to what you have to make sure that this works for you. And that's just that's more of a partnering than it is me telling you what to do.
Yeah, it reminds me very much earlier on in my career, I was designing something, and I worked really hard at, on a deck, and I dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's, and then
Mhm.
I took it to my boss and I said, "Oh, I sent you the presentation and I thought we can walk through it." And he said, "I haven't seen it." I said, "All right, so let me take you through it." He said, "No, I just I just want you to tell me,
Uh-huh.
where do you need my help in this? And I want you to tell me, what do you think can go wrong?"
Very good. Yeah.
Oh my God, it was just such an amazing conversation because
Mhm.
I was so wanting to put the ball in his court and let him take care of it. But
Right.
he brought the agency back to me and he said, "You have a role in this and I have a role in this."
Yeah.
And so I only want to know about where
Yeah.
things could go wrong.
Yeah.
And the final question he said, which was
Uh-huh.
so beautiful, which was, "What people and resources can I get for you to make it happen?" Oh my God.
And I just want to share that example is so beautiful because it demonstrates when you do that, you're not giving up control, that you're actually still quite in control of making sure that the employee that you're working with is calling on the best of what they have in order to get the best answer. And so you're facilitating it. When you facilitate, you're not giving away control. So I think if that again, redefining what is control in this situation. Yeah. Hmm.
All right, the second one that I see, and I think we touched upon it a little bit, is managing emotional triggers, particularly when you're coaching around performance. Sometimes people can tend to get very defensive. I even was talking to someone and they said, maybe I should talk to the team and get some data in so that it doesn't look like I'm the only person. Uh, I said, yeah, but it can also make it seem like you went behind their back and like
Yeah.
gathered all this ammunition. Like, how does one navigate this fear that people have sometimes? How do they manage their own emotions when they're walking into what might end up being a coaching conversation that has such a high stake and a high
Mhm.
probability of
I didn't catch your last word because
the stakes are higher because
yeah, yeah,
everyone
high probability of what?
of it going wrong.
Of it going wrong. Okay, that's what I didn't get. So I could guess it, but I wanted to make sure. There's two things when you talked about that. There's my own fear of something not going right, and then there's the fear that they're going to have a negative reaction, and how do I manage that? So those are two different things. One is before I go in to again create that mental state that what is it that what emotion do you want to bring into this conversation? Is it curiosity? Is it courage? Is it calmness? That you release the tension in your body. Yeah, get out of your brain, quit circulating your thoughts, just release them. Actually, if you put your awareness in the center of your body, it clears your mind. And then pull in that one or two emotion and just really breathe it in. Calm and courageous, curious and care. And it is one or two words because when you go into the conversation and let's say they get defensive and it starts to go off the rails, you can come back to just that anchor, one or two words, and remember to feel that. So you stay grounded in the conversation, no matter what, if you have those to come back to, but you have to really feel it. It's not just a cognitive process, it's embodied that I feel these emotions. And you can quickly bring them in. So you remember those one or two words. And I learned that years and years ago from when I had to do this project and was interviewing professional athletes. What do you do when you're under pressure? The game relies on you. And they all said the same thing that they don't do self-talk. They said that's stupid. It doesn't work. If you think you're a winner, you're a winner. Then your back of your brain's going, no, you're not. You're a loser. Because it's a cognitive process and it's not emotional management. That fear is still there. So they said they always have to first release the tension in their body, which releases the tension of anger, of fear. And then clear their mind, take a breath in, center themselves, get grounded. And the same thing, what is it that I want to feel in this moment? and just stay in that space, and then it doesn't matter what goes on around you because it's like you're oblivious to that. And they practice it, they get really good at it, but we can do that in any conversation. And it's just so people react, and you take it in and you let it go. And if you don't energetically react to their emotions, then their emotions are going to subside anyway. And as soon as you start to feel their emotion is subsiding, then you can say, that seemed to be really important to you. Can you tell me what just came up for you? So you don't say you got really defensive there, because that'll trigger them to go back to being defensive. You just say, I noticed you had a reaction to that. I'm wondering what did you hear that really triggered that response? I'm really curious. But you can say it with genuine curiosity because you've allowed them to react, and then you let it subside.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I find that I always tell my leaders that whenever you're
Mhm.
going to have this high stakes conversation around performance or where people can get defensive, etc., you shouldn't, there's that acronym, right? HALT. Never
Mm.
do it when you're hungry,
Mhm.
angry,
Oh.
lonely, and tired.
Mhm.
Because hunger, anger, loneliness, and being exhausted or being
Yeah.
tired. I
Yeah.
love that acronym HALT because
Yeah.
don't do the conversation there. Because if you don't have the space
Mhm.
to hold your emotion and that of the other
Mhm.
person, this is going downhill for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and then you start saying things you wish you hadn't. There's another
Exactly.
acronym that's good there that's called WAIT. Why am I talking? And then recenter myself before I talk again.
I love it. I absolutely
Mhm.
love it. So the third and the final one, oh, this is so difficult. It's difficult for me sometimes,
Mhm.
is deep listening.
Mhm.
And again, this is one of the things that you've written a lot about.
Mhm.
How does one identify the issue as it presents itself on the surface
Mhm.
versus being able to see something else is going on?
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
to your point, they may come and say, at that example in your book about, oh, I'm like overwhelmed and I don't know how to prioritize and I don't know how I should manage your schedule. And on the surface, you'd be like, okay, here's a time management sheet. Here's what you should do.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
because you probed a little bit further, the
Mhm.
recognition that it's not the fact that she can't prioritize or it's the job itself and the meaning of the job to her. And
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was
It
such a
wants
lovely story.
clear.
I really
Yeah.
like that. So
Mhm.
if I am someone, and I think it's a little bit easier when you've been coaching for a while or trying to
Mhm.
look beyond the surface.
Mhm.
It's also a bit of a sensing thing, I feel. But
Mhm.
is there any advice for how people can not, it's that slot machine thing. You put
Mhm.
in a coin and it spits out a piece of paper. That's not what it is. So
Mhm.
start
Yeah.
looking beyond the surface of it.
Yeah. Oh, in the example that you give, even starting, remembering this is a smart person in front of you, and they're wanting, how do I do this? It had prioritize. Come on, we learned the techniques of that somewhere along the way. The question is, what's getting in the way of this smart person from achieving what it is they want? So first, you want to get to what is it that they truly want here? Because in that example, she was like, I don't want to feel overwhelmed. I want to organize my work. That's where we started. But the question then was, okay, I knew it's like somewhere along the line she learned how to do that. I want to know what's really getting in your way of not organizing your work now. So what's getting in the way of this smart person? But you got to know what it is they want. A lot of times people just come to you with big complaints, and the complaint is not the desire. What does it look like if what they don't like were to go away and they had what they wanted? Then you can start to look at what's truly getting in the way. So that's on the surface. That would be where we start. But when you said deep listening, it was actually 2 books back, even before Coach the Person, when I wrote the book, The Discomfort Zone, that I started. I found the research that was just starting out then about opening up your entire nervous system, because our head is fully connected with the heart and the gut. But we so believe in our cognitive brain because that's how we've been brought up, that we don't hear the heart and the gut. But if not only when you open your heart with gratitude, your gut with courage, and have the open mind, that if you do that, what's amazing is that the person feels safe with you. You already created that intention, that energy that helps them to open up to you. But then when you stay fully open and don't start analyzing what they're saying and thinking, then you can start to receive. So I don't even call it listening anymore. It's deep receiving. I receive
Mm,
what you give me, and then I don't even think about it. I just offer back what I hear are the key words to you. Yeah,
mm,
and let you think about it. Because people often say, how did you know to ask that? It's what were you thinking? I'm like, I wasn't thinking. I've been working now for years. When somebody said to me, oh, you're so intuitive. No, it's that I've developed the ability just to
mm.
receive and offer back, receive
Yeah.
and offer back, and ask for confirmation. And if I heard it wrong, that's okay because they'll correct me, and I allow them to do that.
And it's if someone got you a gift, you don't start saying, "Oh, why didn't you put it in the pink wrapping paper?" Because that's how they wrapped it. So that's how you take it, right? Just even shift in words.
Yeah.
And I was in that session you ran in Singapore, God knows what, I think more than a decade ago on
Oh,
that.
wow. Yeah.
And over the years, and more in my own coaching practice, I think
Mhm.
the reliance on somatic intelligence, body, um,
Absolutely.
is so vital. So just to
Mhm.
pause, because I always tell my clients, I said, your brain can lie to you, but your body will not lie to you. So
Yeah.
always just being able to tune in that moment on what signals am I getting, and
Yeah.
then and reading that
Mhm.
makes so much of a difference. And
Mhm.
deep listening starts at a nervous system, gut, heart level, not just the
Mhm.
brain level, which is what
Yeah.
most managers are rushing to operate with. As we wrap up, I have a question
Mhm.
which is about your coaching journey. You've been coaching
Mhm.
for so long. You were the fifth president of the ICF, and you're
Yeah.
so committed to the profession.
Mhm.
And so I would love to know, maybe this was an early career situation, wherever, what is the most difficult coaching situation you have encountered, and how did
Mhm.
that hit you as a coach? Because what I'm trying to do through this, frankly, is
Mhm.
to say, if Marcia could get through something like that, maybe when I hit my own roadblocks, and say, listen, it's all right. So that's, but I would love to hear if you're open to sharing.
Of course, early on, I had things like it's why most of my coaching now is through organizations. But back when I was doing a lot of coaching with individuals, I learned early on to put in my contract, you are responsible for all the decisions you make, not me. Because one of my clients, I was helping her dream what her next job would be when she was ready for it. She was the breadwinner in her family and she just hated her situation. And I thought, if you had something to work toward that may uh, help cope with what you have to today. It was just a few days later, she calls me and says, I did it. I did what you told me. I said, yeah, she quit. And I'm like, I didn't tell you to do that. And I was so scared. What if she doesn't get a job? And then she's going to say it's my fault and all that. That's why I started doing that contract. Yay, she did get a good job. But that was a really scary thing. And that's the one of the reasons why we don't want to tell people what to do, because then we become responsible for them. There was just things that we learn along the way, right? And knowing who was the type of clients that I could work with best and who I don't work with well.
Mm.
There was one situation where I took on somebody for a friend and I knew better, and it didn't turn out well. And in fact, it's the only engagement in all my nearly, what is it, 30 years now that I've been coaching that I wasn't paid, which is, and I'm like, I don't care. I'm not going to go after these people. I shouldn't have took it in the first place. So that also knowing when we should, to watch the shoulds. When I said, how are the shoulds getting in the way of your dreams? It's also how are the shoulds driving your decisions? And we have to be careful because the shoulds aren't necessarily the right thing. We do it for other people, we do it for society, we do it for our family, and it's not serving us. So asking who's saying should, and is that should serving me? So that's been really helpful too.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
always tell people there's no such thing as a perfect coach. There is only a
Mhm.
perfect coach for you at a point in time, and
Right.
I'll be that coach.
Yeah.
Uh, I am not the only coach. And there's sometimes I tell them, go work with someone else before you come work with me, because I think they'll be a better fit for you.
Hmm.
And there are times when I'm like, I can work with you on X, Y, and Z, and then you really need to go find a coach who can help you.
Yeah.
That self-awareness and declaration to the client really helps, because
Yeah.
it's kind of setting the expectations and rules of engagement on both sides versus
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
the one who can bring world peace, which I don't think is
Mhm.
possible. So anyway, thank you so much,
Mhm.
Marcia. I always learn so much from you, and if they don't take away anything, if they just learn to wait and
Why am I talking? Yeah.
that itself might change a lot of things. So
Right.
thank you so much
Right.
for that. We'll of
Yeah,
course,
you're
link
welcome.
your books and your website in the show notes. But it's always great having you. So thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you for asking.
That concludes this episode of Leaders Upgraded. But wait, your journey is just getting started. Go to www.leadersupgraded.com for more insights, more inspiration, and more tools to continue the journey. And if you have someone who you would like to nominate for the podcast, or a particular topic you'd like us to cover, then also visit www.leadersupgraded.com and let us know. If you like this episode, please do share it. Please do subscribe to the podcast. And I look forward to continued upgrades with you. Take care.